right, hour number 2 here on Outspoken. Appreciate all of you coming aboard here with us. Major League Baseball, we're past the 20-game mark. So Rob Donaldson is going to join us here and talk a little MLB. But first, before we do that, Rob, what'd you make of the NFL draft the first 2 days? Obviously, the third day is today. What'd you make of the first 2 days of the NFL draft? What were your takeaways?
Well, I think a lot of people have said this, but this NFL draft in particular is not full of the what do you call it? The positions that people are going to be glamorous over, or really enamored with. I mean, when you have quarterbacks not really flying off the board after the first two, and heck, even Ty Simpson was a question mark for the first round. And then you also look at just the wide receiver position, the corners. There's not like incredible talent across the board at those skill positions. But this is a great foundational draft. There's a lot of good interior linemen, a lot of good offensive tackles, a lot of guys who are going to kind of build up the foundation for some of these teams that took those QBs maybe last year or the last 2 years. And so from my standpoint, look at the teams that really invested hardcore into the trenches in this draft. I think those are going to be the ones that actually end up paying the most dividends outside of just kind of the top 10 picks in the first round there.
Absolutely here. So let's drop a bunt and get over to Major League Baseball here. In your opinion, I mean, what's up with the Phillies? 10 straight? The battle for the basement right now between the Mets and the Phillies. I mean, what's your takeaways on that team? Especially, you got to think Rob Thompson's got to be on the hot seat here.
100%, because the talent's there. I mean, obviously. And, I didn't love their offseason. I kind of felt like losing a guy like a Ranger Suarez and even just not really kind of filling the gap and their rotation, really kind of relying on some of the younger guys or maybe some of the middle guys to kind of stay pat. Obviously we saw it with Taijuan Walker, Andrew Painter's kind of been whatever. And it's just been a whole conglomeration of not really top end ace-like talent. Well, now they do have a guy in Zach Wheeler taking the bump today who can kind of rectify that scenario or that situation. At the same time, it really just comes down to, hey, the Phillies live in their bats. They got to wake up eventually. This lineup is far too talented, just sit dormant. And they have as of late. That's not really been the issue of why they're losing recently. And for that reason, I look at this game against the Braves today as kind of a good barometer for the offense to get going against a guy who is giving up a lot of hard contact, and Bryce Elder not really paying for it. I like the team total over here for the Phillies on Saturday here.
Okay, so help me out. We're hearing that there's going to be a work stoppage in December, right? So I just saw the Padres go for $3.9 billion. The Rays just went for 2.2, and they got the crappy Trop, and they're building a new baseball park. Hopefully, they're on the Tampa side there of St. Pete there. I was told there's no money. I mean, there's a ton of money now. And when we're talking about expansion coming up and maybe realignment here, are we really headed towards a work stoppage when the owners are saying there's no money? And I just saw the Padres go for $3.9 billion.
It's interesting, right? I mean, and usually when it comes down to negotiations, there's a lot of fear tactics that are thrown out there, right? We're going to shut down the work. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And you should really fear that potential outcome. But I tend to think that and actually what's kind of funny is the NBA playoffs are going on right now. And if you kind of listen to the discourse surrounding the NBA playoffs, it's not really about the actual sport itself. But when you're talking about baseball and the discourse that's kind of surrounding baseball from a national level, it's about ABS. It's about home runs. It's about underperforming billion-dollar rosters, right? Like the Mets and that you have out there just at the bottom of the basement. And so I think from that standpoint, there's a lot more kind of actual sport intrigue right now that's coming into the sport. Heck, you have some relocation happening in the next couple of years here as well. And I think all of that's kind of feeding into a brand of baseball where we're not complaining about umpires anymore or bad calls or it being outdated. Now this is kind of almost a new school technology sport with a faster pace. And I think it's capitalizing on the fact that the other sport that's usually compared in this category, the NBA, is not benefiting from the actual play on the court.
So let's expand on that on ABS in your opinion. You think it's been great for the sport? You think it's elevated more talking points? Because you just mentioned it. I think one of the things that helps the NFL out so much is the water cooler talk Monday through Saturday. And that's what keeps fans engaged because, again, you usually don't have a game until Thursday night, then on Sunday, then Monday night. So you got water cooler talk. So first ABS, and do you think it's been good for that, creating these storylines?
100%, because anytime you introduce something like this to the sport, it creates a whole new meta, right? Like, when do you challenge? What's the risk analysis there? And also, Jazz Chisholm, I don't know if you're looking into these numbers, but this guy gets ABS wrong every single time. He's challenging pitches that are fully catch in the middle of the plate. And so from that standpoint, it's also creating this kind of comical angle of like, hey, this dude has no idea what's going on up there. It's really putting that into light. And I think it's also kind of correcting the disastrous inning ending strikeouts that we've seen from the umpires over the years with runners in scoring position. So I think it's been a home run. And even the process of itself, kind of seeing the pitch go in the strike zone or out of the strike zone on the ABS replay screen, it's fast and fluid. And I think that's what it needed to be to not really inhibit the game.
Do you think ABS will help the TV ratings?
I really, really do, because I think it's also going to speed up the games for getting the calls right. And I think even just from the element of, hey, this can happen, the challenges at play, it's an intrigue that wasn't out ever there. And I think it's adding an element for sure on the entertainment side.
You know, I mentioned the Phillies. It's April 25th, okay, Rob, and they're 10.5 back. Well, the battle for the basement right now with the Mets is like one of the storylines going on. What's wrong with the Mets?
Shoot, a lot's wrong with the Mets. And I think a lot of it came down to, they made a lot of different moves in the offseason, but it felt like lateral moves to get guys who could maybe fill the same role, but just provide something different. That's kind of what it felt like with everything that they did with Marcus Semien, Luis Robert, Brandon Nimmo getting dealt. All these kind of moves felt like they were adding lateral pieces, just trying to get a change of something. But in the mix there, they also lost a guy in Pete Alonso who's been mashing for them for years because they didn't want to give him that long-term deal. And so I think there's a conglomeration of things where they added a bunch of older players and a lot of guys who really haven't, been themselves over the last couple of years. Even Luis Robert, who's young and exciting, has kind of been going through a plateau. Marcus Semien as well. And it kind of feels like it's a conglomeration of a lot of those types of players just not showing up for the back of the baseball card. And I don't really look at this team as like a team that I'm optimistic about really, really turning it around. I think they're potentially going to get back in the playoff mix. But as far as a contender role, I'm not buying this, even if the rotation gets bolstered up and even if the lineup starts showing up.
Rob, let me go back to the ABS here. In your opinion, who do you think has struggled more with this new system, the umpires or the players here? Because, I said this a couple weeks ago, they were taught letters high to knees. That was their strike zone and the human element. We're starting to see and really go after the umpires here because that's what they were schooled on. In your opinion, who do you think has struggled more with it, the players or the umpires?
Yeah, I think what's kind of interesting about it is like if you waste two challenges and now it's the umpire's strike zone the rest of the way, like you were already wrong twice, right? Like that's on the players for getting two challenges incorrect because you retain it if you get it correct. And so the fact that we haven't seen many teams kind of waste through their challenges, I kind of feel like it's a really good balance. I think the umpires aren't going for the crazy sort of, moving sliders, calling it a strike, even though it's wild out of the zone because they know that the hitter can challenge, and kind of vice versa with the players. They're not challenging the pitches on the black. They're waiting for the obvious ones that are way out of the zone, or, vice versa if you're talking about the pitching element side. So I think from that standpoint, both the players and the umpires, I think have truly embraced it really, really well. And it's just correcting the things that already should have been kind of humanly corrected, but just couldn't because of the lack of the replay system.
Absolutely here. We appreciate it. We're going to talk more with Rob. Our friends at Morgan & Morgan, a number one injury law firm in all of America for a reason, with over $30 billion recovered. Our friends down in Pennsylvania, there was a family down there that was initially offered $650K, got nearly $30 million in settlement. Another family in Florida that was offered $350K, they ended up getting nearly $12 million in settlement. Go to forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. That's forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. We're going to talk more with Rob Donaldson next. We'll go into more Major League Baseball. We'll do that right here on SportsGrid.
If LeBron James is the causal reason, and he would be, that the Lakers take out the Houston Rockets, I got to change my narrative a little bit.
A little bit.
I gotta walk back some of the aggressive criticism of the self-appointed greatest player of all time, which he's not, but that's why I said self-appointed.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Gotta call it what it is, Donnie. Did Houston just completely misfire here? Like, did they not do enough research, background, find out more about the guy for him to say this just a few weeks into the season? And then you start wondering, Donnie, is it really dead arm? Like, is there anything going on here? Like, oof, I don't know. Just an awful look for Houston at the start of the season, and they can't win a game to save their lives here.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Do you think technology and those earpieces, again, when it comes to the development of the quarterbacks, is hurt the game?
The development of the quarterback position is getting worse and worse and worse because you don't see live action, you don't get game time experience, and you're going to have to develop in a slower way. And to me, if you don't have the people around you, it's going to be a tough road to be able to play the game.
Outspoken with Dan Sileo, only on SportsGrid.
The level of involvement with the government and the universities is just absolutely hilarious. You got nothing else going that you got to be this involved here across the board? I do not get it, Donnie. I really don't. But that just goes to show you how much it means here to certain individuals in politics.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, so real quick here before we get to some more baseball here, how about the Jets being the Jets there? They go. By the way, Kate Kuplik, the kid from Clemson, was considered previous to the year starting in 2025 as a first rounder. I mean, Jets go out and get themselves a quarterback. I mean, they got Geno Smith in the building right now. So I think everything is on the table right now when it comes to the Jets. What's your takeaway on that one?
You know, I'll always believe in, banking on a QB that has legs, because you can't be a statue in today's sport. It's no longer adding in a guy like a Ryan Mallett, right, or a Tom Savage. You need to have a guy who can roll around a little bit, and Cade Klubnik does provide that. He's not the greatest arm in the world, but I mean, hey, he's not going to be expected to start right away. And so I think taking kind of a quarterback in this range who does have that element of athleticism, it's not the worst thing in the world. I don't mind it.
General managers in the past here, Bobby Beathard, always said this: draft a quarterback in every single draft. You never know when you're going to land on a great one. That's what the Patriots did when they got lucky and landed on Brady in the 6th round with pick 199. So I'm a fan of that too. So let's go back to some Major League Baseball here. Yankees, looks like 20 games plus. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but the strength of the team is the pitching staff.
It's kind of weird, right? I mean, that's kind of what it's turned into. A bunch of young arms going out there and showing off. And I mean, Garrett Cole really hasn't even been kind of in the mix either. So from that standpoint, they're probably just going to get better. Luis Seal has kind of run into some early issues with, getting damaged after an injury, and that can sometimes happen. But yeah, I think the pitching staff is ultimately going to be where this team lives and dies this year, which is a different dynamic than years past because of injuries or underperformance. And the lineup, eventually you would have to think, I don't think that there's going to be a lot of guys hitting sub 200 on the bottom, half of it, like the way they are right now. So I think eventually it's going to be a little bit more balanced. And yeah, it kind of feels like they're a true contender, and a lot of it hinges on that pitching staff.
I'm a Yankee fan, but at the end of the day here, Aaron Judge, do you agree with me when I say that, listen, if you want to go down as one of the greatest Yankees of all time, and you want to be out there in Monument Park, and you're Aaron Judge, I mean, listen, I'm gonna go back, and Dave Winfield was a really great player for the Yankees. Don Mattingly was a great player for the Yankees, but if you really want to hold and be held in high esteem there as a Yankee, you got to win World Series championships. That's still the one thing on top of the cake here for him, the cherry on top of the cake here for him, that he's got to accomplish in New York.
100%. And I think you'd even be one of the first ones to admit it, that in playoff series, when you look at them in kind of their individual vacuums, not the playoffs in total, he hasn't been the best player in enough of those series to make the big mash type of difference. And from that standpoint, yeah, I think that's when the best players are supposed to show up. Mr. October, everything that we, every single story that's kind of written in the stars, whether it's Albert Pujols in St. Louis or Clayton Kershaw, figuring it out for the Dodgers eventually on the back end. You got to show up when it matters. And yeah, I think a lot of Yankees fans and even Aaron Judge himself are just kind of fiending for that moment. It's not always been his fault, but certainly the pitching is there this year. This might feel like the year to get it done.
No doubt. When I was a young kid, man, breakfast, lunch, and dinner were Reggie bars when I was a kid. So you got it. You got to win that here. All right. How about this Cubs team on a heater, huh? 10 straight?
Yeah.
What's going on in the Windy City there at Wrigley?
Yeah, and what's really interesting about the dynamic of this Cubs team, and yes, they have played the Mets, they have played the Phillies, but last night they took it to the Dodgers, right? Like they're beaten, they came back and won against a really good bullpen and a really good team. And ultimately, it's been the offense that's just been on fire. So many great players in this lineup that are hitting really well. And that is also including, Pete Crow Armstrong, who's been terrible up to this point. It hasn't mattered. Everybody else is kind of picking up the slack. And from that standpoint, my biggest question with the Cubs is even when they get Matt Boyd back in the fold, I don't feel like he's a true number one. I think Shota's really good, but outside of, just Shota, honestly, I don't know where the elite pitching is. I don't think it actually exists on this team right now. Edward Cabrera, very good number two, has the upside as a number one, but I don't think he's kind of cemented himself just yet. A very young talent. And from that standpoint, this lineup is going to carry this team, however far they go. Right now, everything looks great because they are scoring runs. What happens when they do get into that offensive lull or experience injuries? I think that's when we're going to truly figure out how good this Cubs team is.
I want to go to the National League East here. I want to make this comment about, the Braves. And, back in the day, I was friends with John Shearholtz, the guy who was the architect of Billy No's great Bobby Cox teams. And, they built it with pitching and they built it with great defensive baseball teams. They're 19-8. Are they getting back to that formula a little bit where they're getting starting pitching again and they're playing good defense? Because it surely looks like that way. Have they been a surprise to you, too, at 19-8?
When coming into the season for the Braves, my biggest question mark for them was the rotation. And last year, it was the rotation as well, where we saw Bryce Elder, fall off a cliff. AJ Smith-Shawver went down with an injury. They had a lot of things going wrong, whether it was the bullpen or the starting rotation. Now it feels a little bit more centered. I still have a lot of questions in that regard, especially with the rotation side of things. But that lineup with a lot of young players and just their cemented stars, Matt Olson, Ronald Acuna Jr., those guys rising to the occasion, that's kind of where, again, kind of like we were just talking about with the Cubs, the lineup is going to carry this team as far as they go, however far they go. And the pitching is that kind of X factor element that can actually truly turn them into a contender. They do have pieces in the minors that, if they are in contention, if they are rolling, they can kind of patchwork some things together at the deadline, which is so important with these types of teams. But at the same time, I think you just kind of look at this lineup and say, hey, take the team total over. That's a good bet right now.
Absolutely here. Hey, I want to get your takeaway on Max Scherzer. Not having a great year with the Blue Jays. I think he went 2 1/3 the other day. He got knocked around. He's got like a 9 ERA. However, he's a strikeout away from 3,500, and he's 10 away from being a top 10 all-time strikeout guy. 30 seconds. His career for you, Max Scherzer's career.
Yeah, Mad Max is one of my all-time favorites. I really love watching the guy. The intensity he brings to the sport, I think, is what I love about this sport with those types of players. It sucks that Father Time is undefeated. It's definitely undefeated with him. It's not going to be a great season, but I think you just kind of appreciate the sentimental moments, to your point, and kind of ride those out along the way.
Absolutely, man. Him and Madison Baumgartner were some of my favorite big game pictures. We've had Kurt Schilling on the program. Dave Stewart's another one of those guys. Mad Max was one of the truly great big game guys and a surefire Hall of Famer. Rob, I appreciate you joining us, man. Thank you so much. All right, so the Cowboys have just won the April Super Bowl. Okay, I'll explain next, right here on SportsGrid.
If LeBron James is the causal reason, and he would be, that the Lakers take out The Houston Rockets, I got to change my narrative a little bit.
A little bit.
I gotta walk back some of the aggressive criticism of the self-appointed greatest player of all time, which he's not, but that's why I said self-appointed.
The Craig Carton Show. Only on SportsGrid.
Gotta call it what it is, Donnie. Did Houston just completely miss fire here? Like, did they not do enough research, background, find out more about the guy for him to say this just a few weeks into the season? And then you start wondering, Donnie, is it really dead arm? Like, is there anything going on here? Like, oof, I don't know. Just an awful look for Houston at the start of the season, and they can't win a game to save their lives here.
Pro Baseball Today. Only on SportsGrid.
Do you think technology and those earpieces, again, when it comes to the development of the quarterbacks, is hurt the game?
The development of the quarterback position is getting worse and worse and worse because you don't see live action, you don't get game time experience, and you're going to have to develop in a slower way. And to me, if you don't have the people around you, it's going to be a tough road to be able to play the game.
Outspoken with Dan Sileo. Only on SportsGrid.
The level of involvement with the government and the universities is just absolutely hilarious. You got nothing else going that you got to be this involved here across the board? I do not get it, Donnie. I really don't. But that just goes to show you how much it means here to certain individuals in politics.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Okay, so it's April 25th here on a Saturday, and the Dallas Cowboys have won the April Super Bowl again. Let me get old man Jones up here now. And I mean, I want to show you what the last 30 years of Dallas Cowboys football has been. Here you go right here. All right, let's run this thing here. Here's Jerry Jones, man. The former president rolls in here, Bill Clinton. This is pre-draft here, but then again, this is an example of the last 30 years. Hang on. Watch out there, old Jer. Stumbling along. That's exactly what the Dallas Cowboys have been doing the last 30 years. Have been stumbling along in the postseason and along with their playoff run. Who would have thunk it? The Cincinnati Bengals have a better playoff run, or the Jaguars do, in the last 30 years. Jerry Jones is the king of winning the April Super Bowl. Listen, I think they had a pretty good first day, and I think they've had a pretty good draft. But old man Jones, I mean, he has not been able to overcome one thing, the ghost of Jimmy Johnson. Caleb Downs is the best defensive football player in the draft. Great pick. There is nobody that's not ready to step in and I think be a Pro Bowl type football player. And I do think that that is a great draft pick. And I do think that's going to be the most impactful pick. And he was, as I said, the best defensive player in this draft. But let's face it here. The last 30 plus years, the last time the Dallas Cowboys were relevant, MySpace, as I said, was a thing. Blockbuster was still in business. I mean, Bill Clinton was the president the last time that you had the Dallas Cowboys being relevant. Look, Jerry Jones has been brilliant as a businessman. When he bought the Dallas Cowboys for $154 million in 1989, even the president of the United States, who was a real estate guy, obviously, at the time, and Donald Trump said the worst move you could possibly ever make was buying that Cowboy team for that amount of money. Well, today, it's the richest franchise on the planet at estimations and valuations worth $13 billion. So as a businessman, he has been brilliant. As a football man, he's been a turd. Jimmy Johnson was the guy who was the puppeteer in this whole thing that built that great dynasty up. Jimmy was head of personnel. Jimmy hired all the coaches. Jimmy made sure that every single person that was added to that 53-man roster went through him. All the assistant coaches that they brought in from the University of Miami ended up going on and winning 3 Super Bowls. If Jerry is such a great football man, explain to me, how come he hasn't been able to do it again? Look at what John Schneider, the general manager of the Seahawks just did. So he comes out of the Pete Carroll era, goes into this new era, and wins a Super Bowl with a new head coach and a new quarterback. Or take a look at Howie Roseman and what Howie Roseman, the general manager of the Philadelphia Eagles, has done. They go from Carson Wentz / Nick Foles and Doug Peterson. They win a Super Bowl. Roll it forward, they end up winning a Super Bowl with Jalen Hurts and with Nick Sirianni. Those are truly great football people that evolve, that understand the draft, that understand that ego, again, has to be put aside when you're trying to put a championship team together. Jerry has been, without a doubt, the worst general manager in all of pro football. Why? Because he believes that he is a football man. He's a businessman in the football world. The NFL would not be where it is today if it wasn't for Old Man Jones. Old Man Jones has helped elevate the star, and he's also helped elevate the shield. There's no question. He is the modern-day Al Davis. He is the P.T. Barnum of the NFL. P.T. Barnum, one of the greatest of all-time showmen when it came to promoting. He's also the Vince McMahon of today. There's no doubt how he's elevated the NFL to where the NFL is right now, the most dominant league in all of North American sports. But when it comes to running his own football team, where in the last 30 years do you see any kind of success where it matters the most? In the fall. Hey, April 25th, Dallas Cowboy fans will always hear this. Now it's our year. I've been hearing that for the last 30 years. Now it's our year. The Cowboys will never win a championship as long as Old Man Jones is running the football team. And I mean the business part of the football side, he's brilliant. The football side, not so brilliant. And it shows in their playoff record. As I said, the Cincinnati Bengals in the last 30 years have a better postseason record than what the Dallas Cowboys have. You explain that one to me. If Jerry's such a great football guy, how in the world did that guy ever get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame as a football man? I get it as a modern-day P.T. Barnum, but when it came to being a football man, you can always count on Cowboy fans. I'm looking at the date now, April 25th. Congratulations on winning the April Super Bowl. All Cowboy fans know that and love that. Cat Ferrar. We'll talk a little football, and we'll talk a little baseball with him next, right here on SportsGrid.
If LeBron James is the causal reason, and he would be, that the Lakers take out the Houston Rockets, I got to change my narrative a little bit. I gotta walk back some of the aggressive criticism of the self-appointed greatest player of all time, which he's not, but that's why I said self-appointed.
The Craig Carton Show. Only on SportsGrid.
Gotta call it what it is, Donnie. Did Houston just completely misfire here? Like, did they not do enough research, background, find out more about the guy for him to say this just a few weeks into the season? And then you start wondering, Donnie, is it really dead arm? Like, is there anything going on here? Like, oof, I don't know. Just an awful look for Houston at the start of the season, and they can't win a game to save their lives here.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Do you think technology and those earpieces, again, when it comes to the development of the quarterbacks, is hurt the game?
The development of the quarterback position is getting worse and worse and worse because you don't see live action, you don't get game time experience, and you're going to have to develop in a slower way. And to me, if you don't have the people around you, it's going to be a tough road to be able to play the game.
Outspoken with Dan Sileo, only on SportsGrid.
The level of involvement with the government and the universities is just absolutely hilarious. You got nothing else going that you got to be this involved here across the board? I do not get it, Donnie. I really don't. But that just goes to show you how much it means here to certain individuals in politics.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
right, we're going to talk some NFL football here with Cap Ferrar here. Then we're going to talk some Major League Baseball. By the way, before I get going here, I see a Braves lid on this guy. 19-8. Got to like your boys and what they're doing before we get to the NFL draft. I mean, maybe old school John Scherholtz baseball is returned, no?
You know, before I say this, I gotta clarify. I'm not necessarily a Braves fan. I got the hat on, but I got a Yankees hat behind me. I got plenty of hats of teams. But the Braves look great, man. The lineup is looking good, especially after what we saw last year. On the flip side, you got the Phillies who look horrible, and you got the Braves Phillies today. What a great game! But man, those teams are looking like polar opposites right now. It's a very interesting dynamic to watch develop here. It's early. We got a 162 game season, so obviously Philly could figure it out and the Braves could fall apart. But at this moment right now, early on, if I'm taking one of the teams, Braves would be one of my top teams for sure.
All right. So speaking of teams now down and out, the two New York teams in the NFL draft, the New York Giants haven't been relevant in a decade. The Jets haven't been relevant in 15 years. How about this number, Cab? In the 25 years that Woody Johnson has owned the New York Jets, 15 years in a row, they haven't made the postseason. So here we are here. But I do think both New York teams, seemingly with the prospects that they got, they may have had a pretty good first day, no?
I mean, so it's always funny to me to read after these like pre-draft analysis and to read the grades they got. Reese is going to grade out better for New York. I think he's a great fit for them, and I completely understand why. But I want to talk about David Bailey for a second from Texas Tech. Texas Tech is my alum, by the way. That doesn't give me any huge connection to Bailey, but I was a huge fan of this Tech team this year. And I see a lot of people saying, oh, can he stop the run? Can he stop the run? Look, Tech specifically situationally put him in for the pass rush. This kid is an elite athlete. I think he absolutely can develop to stop the run. Only time will tell, so we'll see. But that is the number one thing I'm hearing. Can this kid stop the run? Can he stop the run? Or is he just going to be one-dimensional pass rusher? Yeah, I think he can develop to stop the run as well. So that's my take on him. I think it was a great choice. And I don't think they wasted their number 2 pick on him at all.
No, I don't either. I think he's a quality-looking player, too. And I think sometimes when you hear that the kid can't play the run, people don't realize, depending on what the scheme is that you're going to go into, too, when you go into New York, I mean, are they going to put him on the weak side? Are they going to put him on the strong side? So, again, it depends on how the Jets use him and how they're going to be able to develop him, I think is going to be the key there. All right, let me go over here to the 13th pick with the Jets. Now, look, I mean, I didn't see anything special with Ty Simpson this past year. As a matter of fact, in that Rose Bowl, the guy ended up getting benched after he had a stinker against Indiana. Were you shocked that Ty Simpson went to the Los Angeles Rams at 13, especially when you have an aging quarterback that you're trying to go all in on?
This whole Alabama team, I think we have, since we lost Saban as the head coach, it's been an interesting 2 years that we've got to see, and expectations are here, and I think reality is here. Ty Simpson has all of the utensils to be the quarterback that you want him to be. I don't think it was a bad choice. However, he's going to have to develop a lot, man. We need to see that development happen. He made a lot of very bad decisions later on in the season that really cost Alabama late in games. And if you paid attention to what the play calling, they really had to tailor it to where he was, first read, second read. They didn't want him going through, his third, fourth progression very often.
I'll say this to you too. He couldn't have landed in a better place, though, to get developed. Sean McVay is one of the absolute gurus when it comes to developing of quarterbacks. And you look at the organization itself with Les Snead and Kevin Demoff. I mean, look at what they did on the other side of the football the last couple of years. They got Jared Verse. They ended up getting Brandon Fisk. And you ended up getting Cameron Kitchens. You just made a trade for Trent McDuffie. I mean, you couldn't have gone into a better place, though, talking about being developed. I mean, look, like you said, the guy's got great skill set, right? But he went to the right place, the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah. So I got a question for you, and I know you're the one shooting questions at me. But speaking of right place, I am a huge Jeremiah Love fan. I think the kid, if you haven't seen the 30 for 30 on him, I think that you know what some people don't realize. He is autistic, and I think his mindset towards football. I think he is just going to be an outstanding player going forward. But I don't think Arizona was at all the right fit for him. How do you feel about that one?
Okay, you just nailed it. You, as a former baseball man, you think going to an organization back in the day like the Padres, or the only thing you know about the Padres back in the day was hamburgers and Tony Gwynn? So you're dead on. Wherever you go and however you develop, name me somebody in Arizona that they've developed in the last 30 years. Larry Fitzgerald? Give me another guy. That's not an organization that does a good job. I agree with you on Love in this aspect. Is he a Bijan Robinson type of guy? No. You know what I compare him to? He looks a little bit like Saquon Barkley coming out of
Yeah.
Penn State. Guy who could catch the football, guy who could run in between the tackles and also run that stretch play. So to me, again, I think he's got to overcome Arizona, if that makes sense.
It does. I mean, I know we're going way back here, but it makes me think, Barry Sanders' situation with Detroit. Like, Arizona is just not where you want to go to start your NFL career here. And they just signed Tyler Algier too. So, I mean, it's just an interesting move by them, I guess. I wouldn't be disappointed if he got traded somewhere else in the near future.
What do you make of them getting Carson Beck in the third round?
If you would have said Ty Simpson was in the third round, I wouldn't have batted an eye there. So Carson Beck, Ty Simpson. I mean, look, these quarterbacks outside of Mendoza, and even Mendoza, I really grade them out close to the same this year. So I think Carson Beck in the third round is a good pickup.
Yeah,
I think that's a great pickup.
Yeah, I do too. What'd you make of the Cowboys getting Caleb Downs? I just did my rant here on the Cowboys. It's April 25th, so Cowboy fans right now are circling Arlington right now with the April Super Bowl trophy, and I love Caleb Downs. I think he was the best player in the draft. I think he was the most ready player in the draft. Nick Saban said this about the kid when he was at Alabama first before he transferred to Ohio State. One of the smartest players he's ever coached in his entire life. This may be one of the best moves the Cowboys have ever had under Jerry Jones since Jimmy hasn't been picking the team.
You said it though for your last segment when you talked about it. It's April. The Cowboys do great right now. Good for them, right? They do good right now. But then you look at what's going on in the background with like George Pickens and talking about how Jerry's not going to offer him what he wants. They're not going to. And they did this same thing last year, right? And that's the whole reason the defense was in shambles for the entire season. So now Pickens. I understand that there was some worry with him coming to Dallas that he would need to be the superstar and that having CeeDee Lamb on the field with him would be a problem. It wasn't. Pickens was probably the only positive thing out of last season, maybe that and Dak a little bit. But now we're doing this in the background. So good job on going and getting Downs. But now in the background, you still got the noise. We're not paying Pickens. Cowboys are going to do what the Cowboys do every year.
As long as Skeletor, in case you don't remember that cartoon, Jerry Jones looks like Skeletor, or the guy from Poltergeist that knocks on the door, you're not going to win anything as long as Jerry's running that football team right now. All right, we're going to switch gears. We're going to drop a bunt, and we're going to talk some Major League Baseball. And he said it. By the way, as I said, it's April 25th, and the Phillies are 10.5 out already. How's that possible? More with Cat Ferrar next, right here on SportsGrid.
You wouldn't have your ex officiate your wedding.
Do you, Jake? Liar? Cheater? Gaslighter?
So why have anyone but America's largest injury law firm handle your injury case? With over $30 billion recovered for our clients, there's a reason to go big.
Gaslighter, coitus crier, he's got more red flags than a bullfighter's attire.
Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm.
we're going to talk some Major League Baseball here with Cap Ferrar here. I kind of teased it here. I drag teased this in to this segment here. Cap, it's April 25th. The Phillies are 10.5 back. Dave Dombrowski considered one of the better general managers in all of Major League Baseball. You've got Bryce Harper on this team. This was one of the teams that was supposed to push the Dodgers for the NL pennant. What's going on in Philadelphia, and what's wrong with them?
You know, my first knee-jerk reaction to answering this question is to say, hey, 162 games. You know, it's a very long season. Look at what the Astros do year in and year out, where they're doing it again right now, you know, playing horrible baseball to start. And then they're like, oh, hey, you know, we're getting close to, you know, maybe that third of the way through the season. Let's turn it on. Obviously, the Phillies could do that, right? You've got Zach Wheeler going for the first time today. You know, he's their quote-unquote ace. We don't know how he's going to look this year as it's his first start out there, but getting him back is a huge, huge piece to this rotation. Like you said, you've got the lineup, whether you're talking about Harper, Schwarber, you can go through these guys, Turner at the leadoff spot. You've still got all your guys, all your sticks. But tell me why Brandon Marsh is leading your team in batting average right now. Shout out to Brandon Marsh, by the way, who I am on over 1.5 total bases at plus 164. It's one of my bets that I've made today. Brandon Marsh is 5 for 8 off Bryce Elder, hitting 666 off of him, or I got to double check that number, but 5 for 8 off of him. All the way back around to answering your question, something is off with the Phillies. The bullpen, the rotation. I know it's early. I know I just said we have 162 games, but I feel like this is a season-long struggle that we have started right here with this Phillies team.
If you had to put some of that money, and you being a betting man, do you think Rob Thompson survives the year?
Oh, you got it. The whole year? Oh, man. I mean, what are my odds? If I'm getting good plus money on the no, then yeah, I'll take. As long as I'm getting good odds, you know, give me good plus money like a 250 or a 300. I'll take the no. Other than that, yeah, I wouldn't take it because, like I said, 162 games. All you got to do is, you know, start winning series. That's where it starts in baseball. You can't get the 10.5 back right away. You go win 2 out of 3, and then you do it again and again and again and again. Right? You got to start winning series. And the Phillies could do that at any time with this lineup.
Yankees. Am I right to say this, that, you know, one of the question marks going into this season was going to be their starting pitching? You know, they're taking on an underachieving Astros team today. And as you said, got out of the gate slow. The Yankees wobbled a little bit in that Marlins series a week ago, but have you been surprised by their starting pitching this year?
I mean, surprised, I wouldn't say necessarily surprised. The AL has been terrible this year. The National League looks great. The AL as a whole has been terrible. Yankees are 17-9. The Guardians are doing all right. But just as a whole, the AL has been awful. But the Yankees, I mean, look at that. We're not murderers row, but I mean, look at the sticks that they got. Look at Ben Rice stepping up. Another person. You seem to be going, I only have 4 bets, but you go right to the games that I have bets on. I took Ben Rice over 1.5 total bases as well. That also comes in at plus money for you. I've been a huge fan of watching this guy at the plate this season. And as far as the pitching goes, you got Weathers on the mound today. Going back to his days in San Diego, I'm not a big Weathers guy, but if you can give me a 4 ERA on the season right now, sitting at a 3.18, if you can give me a 4 ERA on the season with this lineup, yeah, we're going to win games. That's all. You got to be okay. You just got to be okay. If you're one of the Yankees pitchers, you got to be okay. And if you can do that, you're going to win games.
Well, now that the Giants have traded away Dexter Lawrence, the biggest defensive line in New York right now is Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge. Them 2 dudes in the middle of that lineup, like you say. I mean, them dudes are horses in there. And let's go over to, you mentioned the Padres here. I mean, you know, everyone said this at the beginning of the year that, you know, the Padres pitching staff, I don't know how they're doing it, but they're hanging with the Dodgers. How are they doing it, hanging in there? Is it the bullpen that's been keeping them in this?
All the way. You know, whether you're talking about Miller, he's been in 12 games this year and has a 0 ERA, right? He's gone out there and given you a full inning every time. has a 0 ERA. I'm going to say that again. I mean, I know it's only 12 innings, but come on. 12 innings, if you're a starter, it's one thing, right? You go 6 innings, don't give up a run, go another 6 innings, don't give up a run. That's cool. But coming into 12 games on 12 separate occasions and still not giving up a run, that's outstanding, man. This bullpen for the Padres is just exceptional. And then, you know, they've still got the bats, you know, obviously Machado, right? But then you got Jackson Merrill, who's only hitting 211 on the season. I think we're looking at a spot right here with Merrill. If he starts getting a few hits, he will be somebody that I start looking at to bet, because I think the kid's going to get hot. Tatis, obviously, Xander Bogaerts, the lineup's there. If the pitching if they can hold and the bullpen stays the way they are, this Padres team's going to compete.
Cap, so you're buying them. You don't think it's fool's gold. You think they're real.
You know, I've been pretty successful betting this Padres team in the last couple of years, and people ask me who I'm a fan of, this, that, and the other. I'm a fan of people who take care of my money when I put it on them, and the Padres have done that. So at this moment, yes, I am still buying on the Padres until they burn me. Until they burn me in my pocketbook, which counts the most, I am buying and I'm on the Padres.
30 seconds here. Surprise team in Major League Baseball this year has been who?
Pittsburgh Pirates, easy.
Really? I mean, how about the Central
maybe
Division?
Not surprised. Maybe not surprised, because I did see the young players. The young staff look great, but the most exciting. I'm sorry if I didn't give you most exciting right now. Pittsburgh Pirates.
That Central Division too, man. I mean, the Central Division right now is really getting it done, isn't it? I mean, are you surprised with the Central Division and how well they've played?
I'm almost as surprised with that division as I am with the whole AL with how bad they've played. But the Central Division, you know, hats off to them. It's been across the board. I think with the 162 games, it'll level out, and some of these AL teams will start looking better. But man, if you ask me my top team, you know, Cubs obviously, but outside of that, Pittsburgh, man, buy on Pittsburgh. Take Pittsburgh to get to the playoffs. Get some tickets in on Pittsburgh while you can, because I think this team's for real. It's not fool's gold by any means.
Well, me being a Yankee fan, I'm very glad that the Red Sox are limping out of the gate here, 20 plus. So, listen, even though Alex Cora is a Miami Hurricane, that's the only redeeming quality I like about the Red Sox, is that he's a Miami Hurricane. But to see them rolling in the other direction is great. Cap, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Final thought next, right here on SportsGrid. Okay, so I'm not a real big believer in hype. I'm a guy that you have to show it to me. Show me. I want to see it. You know, I heard all of this hype on Victor Wembanyama when he came into the NBA and he was drafted by the San Antonio Spurs. Spurs, one of the greatest organizations in all of professional sports, dating back when you had all those great players. Like, you saw the greatness of that organization. Tim Duncan, you had Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, winning that 5 championships with Greg Popovich. You knew that organization was one of the best organizations for 20 plus years. And so when you started to see that thing melt down a little bit, and then when you saw the fact that Kawhi Leonard didn't want to stay there any longer, you started to see the organization going the other way. And all of a sudden they get this guy, Wemby. They bring in Wemby, and I was not sold at the beginning, but man, let me tell you something. He is without a doubt, as advertised, he is now the first player in NBA history to garner all of the votes for Defensive Player of the Year. Not only that, but you're talking about Victor Wembanyama right now as a guy who gives you 25 and 11 and 3 assists and 3 blocks per game, and you're talking the best defender in the NBA, and he's 7'4". This guy, to me, reminds me of Hakeem. This guy reminds me of Jabbar. So let me put this in context here for you. When you watch him play, you're watching old school basketball and a guy that wants to play 48 minutes. When you're the Defensive Player of the Year in the NBA, that means you give a crap about wanting to play on both sides of the court, not just shooting threes. Shoot threes, shoot threes. That's what the league has turned into. Victor Wembanyama, he plays 48 minutes of basketball, which means what? Hey, what a novel idea. This guy gives you effort. You put a couple NBA championships around this guy, you're going to be talking about one of the greatest players in the history of the sport. I make this conversation about Kareem all the time. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, in my opinion, is the greatest NBA player of all time. And I have the numbers and the wins to prove it. Everyone goes to Jordan, and now they're talking LeBron James. Well, let me go to context here for you. When he was at Power Memorial in high school, undefeated. When he went to UCLA, 3 straight national championships, Player of the Year at UCLA. By the way, he lost 1 game with John Wooden at UCLA. He goes to the NBA. What does he do? He gets drafted by the Milwaukee Bucks. That dude ends up winning an NBA championship with Oscar Robertson. He goes to the Los Angeles Lakers. He's got to wait for Magic to show up. The guy ends up winning 5 more NBA championships. Kareem is the best player to ever play. And this guy, Victor Wembanyama, look at the numbers. 25, 11, 3, 51% from the floor. This is Jabbar stuff. Ask yourself this question. If you had to have either him, Victor Wembanyama, or Jordan shooting the last shot of a game, who would you choose? A guy on the box in Kareem, Wemby, or a 20-footer by Jordan? The odds would tell you have a better shot of winning ball games with the guy on the box with the higher percentage basketball shot than a guy shooting a 20-footer. As great as Jordan was, no question, one of the top 3 players of all time, Kareem's skyhook was undefensible. You couldn't defend the shot. This is what you have with this kid. Remember something about Jabbar as well. Kareem labored getting up and down the court. This kid runs like Olajuwon. When Olajuwon was at his height, and he was winning the Player of the Year on defense and putting up 35 a night with the Rockets, nobody could defend him. He was shutting guys like Shaquille O'Neal out in the NBA Finals when he was with the Magic. This guy's worth the price of admission. Like I said, look, he's a little banged up right now. He's got a concussion. Whether or not he's going to be available for Game 4 in that series is yet to be determined. But man, what an absolutely great start to his career. You're looking at totally one of the greatest players in the history of the NBA. And when you start putting championships around this guy, you may be talking at the end of the day one of the greatest NBA players that's ever laced them up. And I'm talking about Jabbar, Shaquille O'Neal, I'm talking LeBron, and I'm also talking about, again, obviously, Michael Jordan. This guy's 7'4", and he runs the floor for 48 minutes. What a tremendous basketball player, and he is appointment-setting television. One of the true things that you want to tune in the NBA for, a guy that actually cares. Congratulations. Every vote for a guy that gave you effort and being the defensive player of the year. Folks, I appreciate you. We got a power-packed show lined up for you on Sunday. Catch you on the flip side.